My name is Karen C. Bonnell, and I turned 30 the March before I bought that house. A few days after I bought my first house, my dad called me in anger and said, "It's selfish of you to buy that house without discussing it with the family." I remember standing in my dining room when he said it, staring at a table set for 5, a roast chicken going cold in the center, silver balloons spelling home, drooping against the wall like even they were embarrassed to still be there. And the strangest part was, I didn't feel sad. I felt done. Sadness still begs for a different ending. Done is quieter. Done is the sound of a door closing so softly you almost miss it, until you realize nothing on the other side can reach you anymore. My family was supposed to arrive an hour and 47 minutes earlier. My mother Sharon's only message sat on my phone like a slap. "Sorry, something came up. Busy tonight." 5 words, no call, no explanation, no congratulations on the biggest achievement of my life. Just 5 words for 10 years of work. I put my phone face down on the counter. Then I picked up the lemon tart I had spent 3 hours making from scratch, my grandmother's recipe, the one I learned when I was 13 because I thought one day it might make my mother proud. I carried it to the trash and dropped it in. The thud it made was the most honest sound I had heard all night. I had spent nearly my entire 20s building toward one embarrassingly specific dream, a robin's egg blue house with a white fence and an oak tree in the front yard. My brother Kevin used to mock me for it. "That's not a financial plan, Karen. That's a Pinterest board." He was 33, always between apartments, always recovering from some mistake that somehow became everybody else's responsibility. Kevin once told me at Thanksgiving, in front of our parents and half the family, that I treated money like a religion and fun like a sin. Everyone laughed. My mother laughed the loudest. I smiled, went home that night, and transferred another $1,200 into my house fund. They never saw the studio apartment I lived in for 4 years, so small I could touch both walls if I stretched out my arms. They never saw the used Honda Civic I drove until the odometer passed 187,000 miles. They never saw the overnight shifts, the certifications, the cheap meals packed in plastic containers, the library books instead of streaming subscriptions. From the outside, it probably looked like deprivation. To me, it was architecture. I was building something nobody could take credit for. On March 22nd at 2:15 p.m., I sat in a title company conference room in Asheville, North Carolina, and signed my name 43 times. I handed over a cashier's check for $47,600. My down payment. No co-signers. No family money. Not a single dollar I had not earned. The attorney slid a brass key across the table and said, "Congratulations, Miss Bunnell. It's yours." The house was a 3-bedroom craftsman bungalow on Laurel Ridge Drive, robin's egg blue siding, white picket fence, hardwood floors, wraparound porch, and a 70-year-old oak tree in the front yard that looked exactly like the one I had drawn when I was 9. I still had that drawing tucked inside an old box. At night. I took it out and cried over it like a fool. The first thing I wanted was to share it with my family. Not strangers. Not coworkers. Them. I sent a photo in the family group chat, me standing on the porch holding the keys, smiling so hard my cheeks hurt. "Hey everyone, I officially closed on the house today. I'm hosting dinner this Saturday at 7 to celebrate. I'd love for you all to be there. It would mean the world to me." My mother replied, "Oh, wow, okay." Kevin sent a thumbs up emoji. My father, George, said nothing. Saturday came. I cooked all day. Roast chicken with thyme and lemon. Garlic mashed potatoes for my father. Green beans with almonds. Homemade rolls. The lemon tart. I bought white ceramic plates just for that night. Yellow tulips for the table, candles for the windowsill, and soft jazz for the speaker because my mother used to play it in the kitchen when I was small, back when that room still felt safe. At 7 o'clock, I sat down. At 7:15, I texted, Hey, dinner's ready whenever you guys get here. Nothing. At 7:45, I called my mother. Voicemail. My father. Voicemail. Kevin picked up on the third ring, and I heard laughter and music behind him. Hey, Karen, what's up? Dinner at my house tonight. There was a pause long enough to become cruel. Oh, yeah. I think Mom said something came up. I figured it was pushed. Who pushed it? I don't know. Look, I'm out with some people right now. Can we do it another time? He hung up before I answered. At 8:15, my mother's text came. I read it 3 times. Then I stood, blew out the candles, and started cleaning. I wrapped the chicken in foil. I washed every dish by hand because the dishwasher wasn't connected yet. I pulled the balloons down one by one, and the soft hiss of helium sounded like the house itself was exhaling. At 11:48, someone knocked. I opened the door and found Amber, Kevin's girlfriend of 6 months, standing there with a grocery store sheet cake in a plastic shell. The blue frosting said, "Congrats," already smudged. "Hey," she said softly. "I just thought someone should bring something." I let her in. We sat in my living room under a ceiling light too bright for that kind of silence. She ate cake. I didn't. Finally, I asked, "What came up?" Amber looked down at her fork. "I don't think anything came up, Karen. Kevin was at Darcy's watching the game. Your mom posted from a craft fair around 6. I don't know about your dad." So there it was. Not emergencies, not bad timing, just not caring enough. After Amber left, I locked the door, walked upstairs, and lay on the bare mattress because my sheets were still in a box somewhere. I stared at the perfect white ceiling until 3 in the morning. Somewhere in those hours, something inside me shifted. Not broke. Shifted. Like a bone that had been out of place for 30 years finally clicked back where it belonged. At 6:14 the next morning, my father texted me. "We need to talk about the house." Not "sorry we missed dinner," not "congratulations," not "I'm proud of you." Just, "We need to talk about the house." Like my house was a family problem that had been placed on the agenda without my permission. I sat on the porch swing with a mug of coffee warming my hands, watching the oak tree catch the morning light. The branches moved gently in the wind, calm and indifferent, and for a moment, I envied that tree. It had stood there for 70 years without asking anyone to approve of its roots. I called my father back. He answered on the second ring. His voice had that flat, careful tone he always used when he wanted to sound reasonable while saying something unreasonable. "Your mother and I have been talking." I almost laughed. Those words had always meant the decision had already been made, and my feelings were only being invited in as a formality. "We think it's a bit much," he continued. "What you did buying a house without discussing it with the family." I looked down at my coffee. "Discussing it with the family? Kevin's been struggling," he said, as if that explained everything. "And seeing you post something like that, it's not sensitive. Your mother was upset. Madison, we think you should be more mindful of how your choices affect other people." He used the wrong name once. Madison. I don't even know where it came from. Maybe a slip from some cousin, some neighbor, some woman he respected more easily than his own daughter. But the wrong name hit me in a strange place, not because it mattered by itself, but because it fit so perfectly. Even in that moment, even while scolding me about the biggest thing I had ever done, he still wasn't fully seeing me. "My name is Karen," I said quietly. There was a pause. "You know what I meant?" "No," I said. "I don't think I do." He exhaled through his nose. "Don't make this dramatic. You didn't come to dinner because you think I shouldn't have bought a house? That's not what I said. And the reason you're calling me the morning after is not to apologize, but to tell me I should feel bad for succeeding because Kevin hasn't." "Karen, don't twist my words." I stood up, coffee still in hand, and walked to the edge of the porch. Across the street, a woman was watering her hydrangeas. A delivery truck rolled slowly past. The world kept moving with offensive normalcy while my father tried to convince me that my independence was an act of cruelty. "Dad," I said, "I need to ask you something." And I need you to be honest. When I sent that photo of me on the porch holding the key, did you feel happy for me? Even for 1 second? The silence lasted 4 seconds. I counted. That's not the point, he said. And somehow, that was worse than no answer. I ended the call before he could say anything else. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a kind of delayed understanding. For years, I had believed my family didn't celebrate me because they were distracted, busy, complicated, tired. That morning, I realized it was simpler than that. My happiness made them uncomfortable because it did not depend on them. I wish I could say I responded with wisdom. I didn't. I drove to the hardware store in jeans, no makeup, hair still twisted into the messy bun I had slept in. I bought a cedar board, a wood-burning kit, and 2 brass hooks. The teenage cashier asked if I was making a welcome sign. I looked at him and said, something like that. Back home, I sat at the kitchen island and burned the words slowly, 1 letter at a time. No family discounts, no family visits, no exceptions. The smell of scorched wood filled the kitchen. My hand cramped halfway through, but I kept going. Each word felt like something being pulled out of my chest and made visible. By the time I hung it on the front gate, the sign looked rough, uneven, almost childish. But it was honest. I took a photo and posted it to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter with the caption, "My house, my rules." Was it petty? Probably. Was it dramatic? Absolutely. Was it the most honest thing I had done in 30 years? Without question. I expected maybe 15 likes from coworkers and 1 concerned message from Amber. By noon, strangers were sharing it. By 6 p.m., it had thousands of reactions. By nightfall, my phone felt like a living thing, buzzing across the kitchen counter every few seconds. The internet is strange. Strangers will sometimes understand your pain more clearly than the people who caused it. People wrote paragraphs, not jokes, not empty encouragement, but stories. A woman in Michigan said her sister accused her of showing off after she bought a house at 34. A man in Oregon wrote that no one came to his college graduation, but his family demanded money once he got a good job. Someone else said, "Their discomfort with your success is not your responsibility." I read that sentence over and over until the words stopped looking like a comment and started looking like a key. Meanwhile, my family was finally paying attention. My mother called 4 times between noon and 3. I didn't answer. Kevin texted first. "What the hell, Karen? Take that post down." 20 minutes later, "Mom is crying. Are you happy now?" Then, "You always have to make yourself the victim." I stared at that one for a long time. There it was, the family script in 3 lines. They hurt me. I reacted. Then my reaction became the real offense. At 4:17, my father called once. I let it ring. He left a voicemail, his voice tight with controlled anger. "You are embarrassing this family. This is not how we raised you. If you don't take that down by tonight, your mother and I will have to reconsider our relationship with you." I listened twice. Not because I wanted to suffer, but because I needed to hear the shape of it clearly. Reconsider our relationship, as if there had been something solid to reconsider, as if they had been showing up all along and I had suddenly become difficult. I saved the voicemail. That night, Amber texted me. "Kevin is furious. Your mom keeps saying you humiliated her, but I need you to know something. They're not upset because the post is false. They're upset because people believe you." I sat with that message for a long time. Monday morning at 7:02, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I nearly ignored it, but something made me answer. "Miss Bunnell? My name is Janet Bowl. I'm a reporter with the Asheville Citizen-Times. I saw your post. It's trending locally. Would you be willing to talk about it?" I stood in my kitchen, one hand on the counter, the new house silent around me. "What exactly do you want to know?" I asked. Janet's voice was calm, careful. "I want to know what happened before the sign." And that was the moment I understood the story had already escaped my family's version of it. Janet Bowl came to the house that Tuesday morning with a canvas tote bag, a recorder, and the kind of expression people wear when they already suspect a story is worse than the headline. She didn't rush me. That was the first thing I noticed. She stood on the porch for a moment, looking at the oak tree, the swing, the white fence, the sign still hanging on the gate. And then she said, "It's a beautiful house." I almost said thank you like a normal person. Instead, my throat tightened, because that was what I had wanted my family to say first. Not a lecture, not a warning, not silence, just, "It's beautiful." I made coffee in the kitchen, apologizing for the mismatched mugs even though Janet didn't care. She sat at my dining table, the same table where I had waited for my family, and placed her recorder between us with gentle precision. "Tell me about the house," she said. So I did. I told her about the drawing I made when I was 9, the robin's egg blue walls, the white fence, the oak tree that looked impossible until it was suddenly real. I told her about Raleigh, the help desk job, the overnight shifts, the certifications, the studio apartment where I slept with my winter coats stacked under the bed because there was no closet space. I told her about the used Honda Civic, the meal prep Sundays, the years of refusing vacations because I wanted one permanent place more than 10 temporary escapes. Janet listened without making that sympathetic face I hated, the one people used when they wanted you to know that they felt sorry for you. She simply listened, asked careful questions, and wrote things down. Then we reached the dinner. I showed her the family group chat, my invitation, my mother's, "Oh, wow, okay," Kevin's thumbs up, my father's silence. I showed her the unanswered calls, the text that came at 8:15, and the voicemail from my father threatening to reconsider our relationship. When Janet heard that line, her pen stopped. "Can I hear it again?" she asked. I played it again. My father's voice filled the dining room, cold and controlled, accusing me of embarrassing the family. Janet looked up at me. "Did he ever apologize for missing the dinner?" "No." "Did your mother?" "No." "Kevin?" I almost laughed. Kevin said I made myself the victim. Janet nodded like that answer fit into a pattern she had seen before. "Do you have documentation of the house purchase?" I had everything. Bank statements showing years of deposits, pay stubs, closing documents, the cashier's check, screenshots, messages. I had never been messy with records because some part of me always knew I might need proof that I had earned my own life. The article ran that Thursday. The headline was, "She saved for a decade, bought her dream home, and her family didn't show up." Then the internet did. By noon, coworkers were texting me. By evening, my boss pulled me aside and asked if I needed time off. By midnight, the article had been shared so many times I stopped checking because every notification made me feel like I was standing in the middle of a room with no walls. But the strangest messages weren't from strangers. They were from people who knew my family, old neighbors, former church friends, cousins I had not heard from in years. People who had seen small pieces of the truth and had stayed quiet because silence is easier when the wound belongs to somebody else. One message came from my cousin Rachel, my father's brother's daughter. We had been close as children. Back when family reunions meant catching lightning bugs and stealing extra brownies from paper plates. Then the adults drifted apart, and the children followed, because children usually do. Her email was long. I opened it at the kitchen table at 10 p.m. on Friday with a glass of water beside me. By the time I finished reading, my hands were trembling so badly the glass had slid halfway across the table from where I kept touching it without realizing. Rachel told me my parents had taken out a $15,000 loan 3 years earlier to help Kevin with a condo down payment. A condo he defaulted on within 18 months. She told me my mother had organized Kevin's 30th birthday party at a restaurant that cost $2,200, paid for by my parents, with custom cupcakes and a whiskey tasting and a speech about how proud they were of the man he was becoming. I remembered my 30th birthday. My mother had texted, "Happy birthday, sweetie. Busy week, but hope it's good." My father had sent nothing until 2 days later, when he asked if I could help him reset his email password. Rachel kept going. When I graduated from college, my parents had told extended family I had finally finished, as if I had taken too long, as if the degree were some embarrassing delay. In reality, I graduated on time with a 3.7 GPA while working 25 hours a week. But the part that made me stand up because sitting suddenly felt like drowning was near the end. Karen, my mom told me something I never forgot. About 2 years ago, your mom said she was worried about you. She said you were obsessed with that house idea and that it was unhealthy. Then she said she hoped you wouldn't actually buy one because it would make Kevin feel worse about himself. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I read that paragraph 6 times. My mother had not missed my dinner because she was busy. She had missed it because she resented the reason for it. I walked to the bathroom and ran cold water over my wrists, a trick Dr. Renee Hollis had taught me when anxiety became physical. I stood there under the harsh bathroom light, water spilling over my skin, breathing in counts of 4. In, hold, out, hold. The truth did not arrive like lightning. It settled like dust, slowly covering everything I had once tried to keep clean. I forwarded Rachel's email to Dr. Hollis and requested an emergency session. Monday morning at 7:30, before work, I sat in front of my laptop with wet hair, coffee untouched beside me, and told her everything. Dr. Hollis didn't look shocked. That was one of the things I appreciated about her. She treated revelations not like explosions, but like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Karen, she said, what you're describing is a family system built around maintaining one person's dependency and another person's invisibility. I stared at the screen. Kevin is the one who struggles. Why am I the one they're angry at? Because his struggle gives them a role, she said. Your parents know how to rescue Kevin. They know how to excuse him, defend him, explain him. But your success challenges them. If you can thrive without their help, then their help was never the reason anyone succeeded. I sat very still. She continued, your brother may be the golden child, but not because he shines. Because his dependency keeps your parents feeling necessary. You, on the other hand, built something without asking them to hold the blueprint. That threatens the hierarchy. I looked toward the hallway where my childhood drawing now hung in a cheap frame. The little blue house, the crooked fence, the oversized tree. So they needed me to fail, I said. Dr. Hollis's voice softened. They needed you to stay small enough that no one had to question why Kevin was always centered. After the call ended, I sat in silence for nearly 20 minutes. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Amber. Kevin knows Rachel emailed you. He's panicking. He said your parents are talking about options. I don't know what that means, but it sounded bad. I read the message twice. Outside, the oak tree moved gently in the morning wind. Inside, my house felt different. Less like a shelter and more like something I might have to defend. 6 weeks after the dinner, I was at work when Thomas Dunlap, the attorney who handled my closing, called me. Karen, he said carefully, has anyone in your family recently asked questions about your property deed? The office around me kept moving. Someone laughed near the printer. My coworker opened a bag of chips. But everything inside me went still. What? An attorney in Raleigh contacted me this morning. Craig Beller. He said he represents your parents. He wanted to know if any family funds were used in your down payment that might create an equitable interest in the property. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My parents didn't give me $1, I said. Not for the house, not for college, not for anything. I know, Thomas said. Your file is clean, but they're fishing, and the fact that they hired an attorney means this is not casual. I hung up and sat at my desk for 14 minutes without moving. Then I opened every bank statement I had going back years and organized them into folders. Paychecks, transfers, savings deposits, closing documents. Proof that every brick of that house had been paid for by my own exhaustion. That evening, I drove straight to Thomas's office. He stayed late, reading through everything with a yellow legal pad beside him. This is ironclad, he said. There is zero ambiguity. If they file anything, they'll lose. Then why do this? Thomas looked at me over his glasses. Because they can't stand that it's yours. The next day, he sent a cease and desist letter to Craig Beller, warning that any baseless claim would be met with a counterclaim for harassment and abuse of process. But I didn't want this buried in legal language. So I called Janet. When I told her what happened, she went quiet. Then she asked, "Are you willing to go on record?" "Yes," I said. "All of it?" Her follow-up article came out 2 weeks later. It included Thomas's statement, Rachel's account, the timeline of my savings, and the fact that my parents had tried to question ownership of a house they had never helped me buy. The headline hit harder than the first one. Family of dream home buyer attempted legal claim on property she earned alone. This time the story didn't just spread, it detonated. Craig Beller dropped my parents within a week. My mother's little candle business lost its following almost overnight. Kevin called me at 1:30 a.m., drunk and furious. "You ruined everything," he slurred. "Mom won't stop crying. Dad won't talk to anyone. You blew up this family over a dinner." "No, Kevin," I said. "I exposed a family that hoped I would fail." He was silent. "That's not true," he whispered, but his voice broke on the last word, and we both knew he didn't believe it. I ended the call. The next morning, I blocked all 3 of their numbers. Not because I wanted revenge, because for the first time in my life, peace felt more important than being understood. 3 weeks after I blocked them, my father sent a letter. Not a text, not an email. An actual handwritten letter mailed to the house he had never visited. Thomas Dunlap reviewed it first, because during the legal mess I had asked him to look at anything my family sent. He called me that afternoon. "It's not legal," he said. "It's personal. Do you want to read it?" I did. My father's handwriting was small and careful. The same handwriting I remembered from birthday cards that always said the right words but never seemed to carry much feeling. The letter was 2 pages long. He said he was sorry. He said he had not understood how his silence felt. He said my mother's behavior was not something he agreed with, but that he had failed to intervene. Near the end, he wrote that he was proud of me, that he always had been. I read that line 3 times. Then I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. In therapy, Dr. Hollis asked, "How did it feel?" "I believe he's sorry," I said. "But sorry and changed are not the same thing. What do you want to do?" I looked around my living room, at the sunlight on the floor, at the walls I had painted myself, at the quiet I no longer felt desperate to fill. "Nothing," I said. "For now, I want to do nothing." And somehow, nothing felt like freedom. The months that followed were the quietest and fullest of my life. I didn't reconcile with my family. I didn't swear I never would. I simply stopped reaching. I stopped setting tables for people who had already decided not to come. And when I stopped begging for the wrong people to enter my life, the right people began arriving. My neighbor Dale, 72, a retired electrician with a limp and a habit of pretending he hated company, showed up one Saturday morning with a pecan pie. "I read about you in the paper," he said. "My daughter went through something similar. Welcome to the street." Then Priya from work started coming over for coffee. Then her husband Raj. Then their kids. Then Elena from 2 houses down. Then a quiet man named James, who fixed my mailbox without being asked and blushed when I thanked him. One afternoon, a kid from the block saw me working on my laptop on the porch and asked what I was doing. "Coding," I said. "Can you teach me?" So I did. Within a month, 4 kids were sitting on my porch every Tuesday and Thursday learning basic Python on borrowed Chromebooks. One of them, Marcus, built a working calculator in 3 weeks. When he showed his mother, she cried. Then she brought me tamales, and I cried too. That is what nobody tells you about building a life honestly. It does not stay empty. The right people find the light. 7 months after the dinner my family missed, I hosted another one. Same table. Same candles. Different flowers, sunflowers this time, because Dale said they lasted longer. Roast chicken again, but better. Lemon tart again, because I refused to let that recipe belong to disappointment. 8 people came: Dale, Priya, and Raj, Marcus and Elena. 2 women from my running group: James, who arrived early with a toolbox, just in case anything needed tightening. We ate, we talked, we laughed so loudly Dale's hearing aid whistled, and he acted offended. Marcus tried the lemon tart and declared it busting, which I was told was the highest compliment possible. At 10 p.m., everyone was still there. No one checked the time. No one made excuses. No one treated my joy like a threat. I stood in the kitchen doorway holding a dish towel, watching my table full of people who wanted to be there. And I thought about that first night. The cold chicken, the sagging balloons, the silence that felt like a verdict. Only now I understood. The house was never a test my family needed to pass. It was never proof that I deserved love. It was just a house, 4 walls, a roof, and a 70-year-old oak tree. What made it matter was not the key. It was learning who deserved to be inside. The first night, my house held absence. That night, it held belonging.